Okay, my name is Massimo Delago. I'm 23 years old, and I'm a last year student at the University of Baltimore.
Okay, are you a Democrat or a Republican?
I am a Democrat.
Why?
Um, at one point, I took a more centric view on things, and so I would say someone with that position is called a moderate. They're sort of in between. But my view on things are more liberalistic. They're more liberal as opposed to conservative. And when you talk about liberal and conservative, you usually associate liberal with left wing, conservative with right wing. In turn, you tend to pair right wing with Republicans and left wing with Democrats. So, if you going back up the ladder, I would consider myself to be a Democrat because of my, I would say left wing liberalistic views on things, on certain policies and things like that.
Okay, if Romney was elected, how would your life be different?
How would my life be different? Before I answer that, could I reiterate on
Sure.
the last question?
Sure.
Also, I think Republicans, left wing, are more conservative, and I'm sorry, right wing are more conservative. Left wing, they're more progressive if you look at things. So that's another reason why I would say that I associate myself with, as being, or I would consider myself as being a Democrat.
Okay. You want me to repeat the question?
Sure.
Okay. If Romney was elected, how would your life be different?
How would my life be different? It's a good question. Glad you asked. My life would be different. I don't think there would be a direct effect. I mean, there's certainly things that politicians do, people who are in power like Barack Obama, there's certain things that he does that affects people. To what effect, on what scale, of course nationally. Does it affect everyone? Not necessarily. So I really couldn't say, but I would think that it would affect me maybe economically. I'm still a student, so once I graduate, I'm going to be looking, of course, for work. And if the job market is not where it should be at, where it could, it's sufficient enough for people to be hired, and there's not this, we don't have all the sequesters that we have now, which are federal cuts, and we're not in the, the economy is not in the state that it is now. I think that it would be even worse because my view on Romney is he's driven by corporate agendas, if you know what I mean. So I think that it would affect me in an economic sense overall, I would say.
Okay. How would the economy currently be if Romney won the election?
Again, sort of what I was saying. I think the economy, I think it would either be the same or worse than it is now. The reason I say that is because when George Bush left office, we were already headed in a downward direction as far as a nation economically. We were diving into almost reached a state of depression. Thankfully, we didn't get there, but we came really close, and we're in recovery now. And that's why we have all these budget cuts and, sequestrations and, all these other things that are in effect. Yes, they're going to hurt us now, but I think that they'll pay off in the long run. I think people need to get off Obama's back. I'm going to be straightforward with it. I think that you need to give the man a chance to straighten things out. And people have to understand that these things take time. Our nation is supposedly, I would say, $13 trillion in debt. And the budget cuts and sequestrations would take care of 1.7 million of that in a course of 10 years. So that being said, I think that Romney, he has a lot of investments in companies overseas, and he has Bohemian bank accounts. What does this tell you about the man? He thinks that 47% of the nation doesn't pay taxes. So if you can't even get your simple facts straight and math like that straight, what's to say that if you were to be in office, that your policies economically could be accounted for? You know what I mean? So I think that it would be worse, because not only does he have investments in them, these are companies that are overseas. These are companies that they outsource as opposed to create jobs in the United States. So that's money for those countries, not us. And I think that, right now we need to focus on the United States rebuilding economically as a nation. Again, because we're already in debt, and most of that debt that we're in is to China. And you're going to outsource, you're going to invest in companies that are outsourcing work in China? I don't think so.
Okay, how would society be different if Romney was elected?
How would society be different?
Mm-hmm.
How would society be different? I think you got sort of a taste of that during the election. You could see that, there was a lot of, because of social media, thank God, in journalism, we have something called transparency, which allows the public eye to view everything almost holistically, in a sense. The 47% video, when that was released, people were talking about it so much because although it was an anonymous source, the video was legit. It was real. It was a real video. And it caught Romney in a moment of insecurity where he let his guard down. He wasn't putting on a facade that he put on the campaign trail. He was talking and sharing his thoughts with these people who he associated with and shared the same, political views and agendas. And what came out of his mouth, I would assume, was, to him, truthful. How you perceive it or how the people who saw it digest it, that depends, But what I saw a guy who was lying to the people that he was, who he wanted to elect him as president. And as a president, if you're lying to people while you're on the campaign trail, what makes it any different if you're elected, as a candidate? So I think that there would be a lot of lies, there'd be a lot of deception. I think a lot of that went on when George Bush was in office. And again, you associate it with Republicans. That's why I disassociate myself with Republicans. And I would, again, say that I'm a Democrat. But the thing about it is, I think that it's not all about Republicans and Democrats. I think that the House has to have some order. There has to be some sort of aggregation of viewpoints and policies within Congress. There has to be a middle ground on a lot of policies and topics, because if there's not, there's just going to be a constant war, tug of war in the House on, okay, well, what gets passed, what doesn't get passed as far as bills, certain laws, that eventually, when you run it down the ladder, affects us. So I think that, again, there has to be some moderation amongst these politicians in Congress, and I think that it would be for the better of the public, because I think that if you look at it and break it down, a lot of Democrats, a lot of liberalists are more corporately driven, although there are some Republicans out there, and a lot of, I would say, conservatives are more government driven. They give all the power to the government. Liberalists give all the power to corporations. But so it's sort of like a cycle. Government invests in corporations, corporations invest in government. But we have to find a way that it benefits the people. Because all these corporations, these big banks, Citibank, Bank of America, Chase, when they went under, we bailed them out. And these are the banks that, we invest in. We have our shares of stock in, and we, have our savings account, checking account. These banks are billion-dollar businesses, mega corporations that, especially if you have mergers within them, they hold a lot of they hold our money, but they have a lot of power over a lot of things. The housing market, when they went under, the housing market went under with them. People lost their houses. People lost their jobs. And again, it's all because of the state of our economy. And again, look at who was president, who preceded Obama. I'm not saying that it's George Bush's fault, but it's sort of like, he set Obama up for failure in a sense, because he left the economy in a state of shambles when he left office. And, someone had to pick up behind him. So.
Well, that's all my questions. Thanks for answering my questions.
Thank you.